taking the time on your schedule to come here. We also like to thank the state parks, not only for this visit, but for the months of work they put into reviewing your comments, reviewing the plans, and not just months of work, years of work, really. The primary purpose of tonight's meeting is to receive information from the state parks to the town board. This is a presentation. There will be no opportunity for public comment. This is not a public hearing. The board has asked me to remind you that this forum must be disciplined and well-mannered. If there's any disruption from the public, there are police officers who will ask you to leave. Since there is so much interest in this project, we are holding the workshop here as a courtesy to the public, but we will not tolerate clapping, moaning, shouting, or other forms of disruption during the presentation or afterwards. Again, thank you for everyone's input throughout this long process, and thank you for being here tonight. And especially thank you for showing respect to each other and the state parks. Let us take this opportunity tonight to demonstrate once again what type of community we are, where despite disagreement, we can get along. In that regard, as the chair of this meeting, I ask the members to ask to be recognized before they speak. I also ask that you limit the discussion not to matters of personal reflection, but only to matters directly related to the presentation before us. And with that, we will begin the meeting with the state parks. Yeah, I think that's a good idea. We'll begin by the Pledge of Allegiance. I'll lead the pledge. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
That's a stretch.
Yes.
Supervisor McMurray and council members here tonight, I wanted to walk through our findings on the option 4 you submitted to us, as well as our refinements on the option 3 that we presented here in this past summer. Thank you. I'll look closer. Thank you. First, I wanted to review the objectives of the project. Provide an alternative transportation connection between the cities of Buffalo and Niagara Falls that will be safer for non-motorized vehicle use. Provide a critical link in the Niagara Greenway Trail System. Enhance connectivity and improve pedestrian and bicycle safety. Improve air quality, improve and promote health and physical activity. Construct the entire connector trail as well. The grant funding the federal government requires that it be completed. Our other objective, which is not in those formal ones, but to bring the project inside the budget of $2.5 million for the total cost of the project. We had a first public meeting October 6th at Town Hall, and an open house structure. On the 10th of November, we held, 2015, we held sessions at the Nike base here on the island to review public input and to lay out the entire spectrum visually so people could comment on it. And we got very good comments from that. And then on July 20th, we were here at the auditorium of the school for a public meeting as well. So that being said, with those public input sessions, we received a tremendous amount of input from the public on the concept of the trail and the different options. And out of that, we were given a proposal by the town board to consider what they labeled as an option 4. And so I'd like to walk through some of the points of that here this evening and some of our concerns with that as well. And I'll walk through option 3, and I will, which is our option that we presented in the summer, and I will then talk about refinements as well with that. And then we will have a conversation with the board as regards the project going forward. So essentially, I'd like to start with on option 4 involves putting a trail in the median, basically what we would call a median between the town road, West River Road, and the Parkway roadway. Essentially, that creates 9 intersections for pedestrians or bicyclists to cross. 9 intersections. This would also require trail users to cross the parkway on the northern end and the southern end of those two ends of the parkway. Puts pedestrians close to the 55-mile-an-hour traffic in certain locations, very few, but some, which would, in those circumstances, likely require us to install guide rails. As we got into final design, that would be determined. And then finally, trail users would be pushed closer to the homeowners on West River Road, and their presence would be closer to the homes than it was on the option 3 we proposed. Pathway would be 10 feet wide, and it would come in at a cost of approximately $3.3 million construction and design costs all in. From an environmental consideration standpoint, you'd be adding a third ribbon of pavement to that parkland area out there. It would require some additional tree removal, but not a lot. Installation of asphalt increases the carbon footprint of the project significantly. Would also create changes in the water runoff that would be required to be managed from the water runoff from the pavement. And we'd have to manage that through some grading and some other improvements to address that issue. Traffic impacts. In this particular option 4, there would be no significant impact because the highway system would remain as it is today, the status quo in this proposal. Next thing, the access. It would require, option 4 here, proposed by the board, would require trail users to cross the 55-mile-an-hour roadway to get to the waterfront. It would allow people to continue to enjoy the water from the 55-mile-an-hour road. However, as we've had many public comments regarding people that enjoy the drive along there. Also, an option 4 would likely require the installation of guide rails, as I mentioned, in a few locations, which does have a visual barrier that we did hear from the public here that they did not want those barriers interrupting their view of the river. The next item was accommodating uses. There's high probability that in the wintertime, snowmobiles would be using and beyond portions of the trail are crossing it, which would cause increased maintenance costs for state parks through time. And then under maintenance, due to minimal traffic impacts on West River Road, it's not anticipated maintenance costs for the road would grow. Maintenance costs to the trail would need to be budgeted, especially if there's snowmobile impact on the roads. Allocating state money to maintain a low-volume parkway and a new trail would be challenging for the state of New York, and DOT would continue to maintain the parkway as it would remain a roadway. Under parking lots, there's no bearing on that because the option 4 didn't address that. Additional development, there's nothing there as well. And I'll pick the last impact on property values. I'll pick up as I review option 3. So those are some of the highlights of what we see with option 4. Safety considerations, option 3, I'll move through these now. There's 3 crossings of highway, roadway to get to the trail in this case. 3 intersections to deal with during the whole 8-mile trail. It eliminates the 55-mile-an-hour traffic from the west side of Grand Island in the state park lands. It provides greatest separation between vehicular traffic and bicycle use while avoiding the need to install extensive guide rails, which are a visual barrier, which we heard from the public they did not want to see out there. The existing parkway is 24 feet wide. We would have 12 foot of trail lanes in each direction versus 10 in option 4. Keeps the trail users at this point farther away from the homes than was proposed in option 4. The total cost we can bring in this project at $2.5 million with design as well as construction costs included. The environmental considerations, it's reuse of a low-use asset. Would require less number of trees to be removed, minimal impact because stormwater is already being managed through the system that's out there, minimal use of new materials, and less ground disturbance and potential impact to historic or cultural resources. Next, traffic impact. We did an additional traffic count out on the roadway as was requested by a couple of the town board members. because they wanted to make sure that the 2009 data was current. We did that. And essentially, and we have those full reports will be given to the town board tonight in their detail. You'll have those to review and go over.
And what were the numbers?
And I'm going to walk through that. Essentially, the numbers do not significantly change from 2009. And so there has been no real significant impact in terms of change of the traffic counts. You'll see that in the data. You'll get the raw data and you'll have that report. You'll also get a summary on that report as well tonight, town board members. State Parks essentially will work with the town. Councilman Aronica, I spoke with him and he expressed a concern about safety on the town road, and so we did look at that as well. We did a traffic count as well on town road, not just the parkway. So you'll have all of that data. Essentially, we are looking at a roadway system that is running at about less, in both cases, the town road and the parkway are running below 10% of their design capacity. And if you put all of that traffic on one, they still don't even cross 10% of their design capacity. So I think that's an important point in terms of safety and in terms of wear and tear. We met with the folks who are duck hunters that use the duck lines on the river throughout the parklands, and we have assured them that we will continue to give them access to the sites. We're not reducing the sites. They'll have the same sites they had before and the same system by which we allocate them. And also, the snowmobile use under this option would continue. There are horseback, folks that do horseback riding on that strip of parkland as well. Those uses would not be curtailed. Maintenance, once we're no longer having the DOT maintain it as a roadway, state parks would be operating as parkland, and we would have some increased cost related to maintenance of it as parkland. We would have to do the mowing and the trimming of trees and pruning trees and removals as necessary. That would become state parks responsibility versus New York State Department of Transportation. Parking lots, we heard very clearly from the public that they did not want parking lots in front of their houses, so we have removed all of those from the design elements in option 3. The parking area access will be as it is now at the locations of the overlooks, which will have some enhancements done to them. And at Buckhorn Island State Park, at Beaver Island State Park, and at Big Six Marina, as well as the town has parking available at its recreation facilities at the Nike base. So there'll be plenty of places for people to access and trade and have parking. In addition, there'll be no commercial. We had concerns expressed to state parks. I'm not sure where it came from because it's not how we do business. That there'd be commercial development or condos built along this property. There's absolutely no truth to that whatsoever. That cannot happen on state park land and would not happen. And it's just not consistent with our mission, nor would that be a use that the state legislature would move to allow us to do and develop in that area. In addition, we heard concerns from the public, and this pertains to both option 3 and 4, about parklands and its impact on property values. Essentially from the National Association of Realtors as well as other groups that have studied this issue throughout the United States, that essentially what you get with trails and with parklands adjacent to properties, you have increased property values through time. And it is not a diminishment of property values in a community. So those are the highlights of that. I have for you this evening my letter to the town board, which I'll hand out to all of you now, which has more detail. And each packet contains as well the summaries. Of our findings on option 4, it's into more of the detail, the summary sheet I just walked you through. And option 3, the changes in the program that we have adjusted based on citizen input. And then finally, the memorandum from CNS Engineers, which is the summary document of the traffic counts. And then we will also be giving you this evening the traffic count data. The town board will receive that this evening from us in its draw form as well as summarize. Yes, also, we brought with us some renderings here that are up behind Mark Mistretta and Vic here, Vic O'Brien. Essentially, to give you a look on the right-hand side of what we look to do to prune up some of the vegetation so we restore some of the views to the river that'll both have a positive impact on the homeowners along the road, but also for the recreators, so that, as you can see at the bottom poster, the bottom photograph shows one of the areas where the view shed is completely blocked out. We want to be able to open that back up, and State Parks would be responsible to establish those, work towards the maintenance of those as well. And then you'll see as well on the left-hand side the a rendering of how the overlook will look once we do a few of the improvements to it. It's very minimal. There'll be some pathways down to the water to increase access to the water, improve access as well as handicap accessibility to the water, which we do not have in our system at this point in time. So those are just some images that we provided you as well. And we have the board here, which is a duplicate of what you have in front of you when I walk through on the summary sheet. Questions. I've got Victor O'Brien from CNS Engineers here with me, and Mark Mistretta, who's a capital facility manager here for State Parks in the region. And they can answer technical questions that I am not well versed in as they are. That's the nature of their work. So, Supervisor, turn it back.
Yep. So it's at this point the town board can ask any questions they have regarding this analysis.
We just received it, so I'm kind of digesting it, but one thing sticks out. It says the state parks has respectfully concluded that option 4 is not feasible or preferred alternative. Is that your final decision on this then?
That's our position at this time, unless that's our position at this time. Yes, based on the information you've given us and what you have looked at. It's important that you know that we looked at this early on in the project.
We haven't looked at any of this yet, really. I mean,
So you can go ahead and look at it, yeah. We can talk more about it, but this is where we stand right now.
So I have a couple questions, just real quick, if that's okay. So
Yeah.
you ready? If you want to go first, you can. So I have a few questions. First of all, you mentioned safety. I think that's probably one of the biggest concerns we have, one of many. You mentioned 9 intersections. I'm going to mention 200 driveways, 150. I don't know how many houses are on the Parkway. How many bus stops? How many mailboxes? How many people will be crossing the road to get to this trail? The residents' safety, to me, has got to be one of the primary drivers for this decision. Putting 500,000 more cars a year in front of those residential houses, I have a big concern with that. Number 2, East River Road. If you look, a major part of that from the South Grand Island Bridge going over towards what used to be DA's back in the good old days, towards Ferry Village, 930 cars a day. We're talking 1,550 here, almost a 50% increase more on this road, the service road you're proposing to shift, on top of the already existing traffic that is on that service road. So we're talking greater than a 50% increase relative to a major part. And actually, if you look at East River Road, a majority of East River Road has less traffic than this parkway itself has. And I think many people in here consider East River Road one of the more dangerous roads on the island. And where my concern is, the service road is one of the safest on the island. Why would we want to take and make one of the safest roads on the island at least equivalently as dangerous as the other roads on the island? And when I say that, there's traffic data, which I can share with you, that shows there's a 2- to 3-fold increase more per mile over the last 58 months, 2 to 3-fold more accidents on East River Road with the lower traffic counts than what you're proposing on this road, I'm concerned. And what compounds that more is, this service road was shifted. Many of the homes were shifted. Go drive down East River Road and look at how long most of those driveways are. A lot of these driveways, their front doorstep is the service road. So, I mean, now let's talk about quality of life for the residents there. Add 500,000 more cars per day. Per year, going down the service road, 500,000 cars more. That's in addition to what happens in the 1 or 2 months where it's closed, it's not closed, where it's not in use. We're talking, there's noise, there is pollution, there is safety hazards, there's a lot of quality of life. I mean, people right now sit out on their front porch, they bought their homes based on quality of life. In most cases, 90% of that parkway has a berm, which blocks the sound, which you almost can't even see the traffic down below on the parkway. And I know I've heard something about, drive down the parkway. In most cases, I took pictures and I have that in a PowerPoint presentation here that I can share with you. We did want to have an opportunity to have a back and forth so that we could actually share information and through a partnership come to the best conclusion and decision on this. And I think before either one of us say it's what's our preferred position, it would be nice if we worked together to come up with the best solution. And when I look at all the negatives on this, I'm very concerned that it's not the right decision. Just a few more things. When this was originally agreed to, back in the 40s, 50s, when the eminent domain occurred, there was a commitment made back then that this was the parkway, the scenic parkway, was a worthwhile cause. There was only about a few thousand people on the island back then, a fraction of the current traffic, Back then, they felt the disruption to the residents by moving their homes, taking over their property, was worth it, even though it was relatively low traffic. What many of the people here are arguing today, they kind of agree. They agree that it was worth it. They are saying that that is a scenic parkway. There's many elderly people, there's many handicapped people that love that drive. I can say personally, I drive it every morning. You know, one of the things I really enjoy about going to work, and not too many people enjoy going to work, it's a beautiful drive. It's tremendously beautiful. Move it over to the service road, it's not the same drive. It is significantly less. It is taking away something that is a beautiful scenic drive that does provide panoramic views of that river. And so, I mean, there's a number of concerns I have, and I do have a PowerPoint, and I would like to have the opportunity to share that with you at some point in time.
That'd be fine. Ray, you had some concerns?
I'm not going to dispute any of all this information you have here. What I would like to bring up is the start of this project. Councilman Aronica and I were the 2 board members that were on board at that time. This idea was brought to the town and said, we'd like to partner with you on this. We have an idea. This is what we'd like to do. I originally was against it because I was worried about the cost to the town of Grand Island, would there be any? And I was assured that there would be no cost of construction, nor cost of maintenance. That being said, and the fact that the proposal at that time seemed to be a pretty nice thing, get people real close to the water, be able to benefit that. So I voted for it, and so did Mr. Aronica, and the rest of the town board members did. But I'm thinking that if the state ever would have said to us, and we're also maybe thinking about closing the parkway. I don't think there would have been a board member that would have supported that. And so here we are today in this situation where the original design that was approved, and the town said that they would love to partner with the state on that because they thought it would be an enhancement to the whole West River area, has morphed into what I consider to just be a boondoggle. And I would suggest that possibly the state look at what has been called option 5 by a resident, because they researched this called share the road, where you keep the road open during commuter time, during the week, and on the weekends, close the road and let people use the road for biking and whatever they want to use it for. Or, if that doesn't really come to be a very good idea throughout the thinking, maybe we should just leave everything the way it is, because the West River Road already is signed. No.
Please do not clap. I advised you in the beginning not to clap.
I'm sorry I waited like that. Supervisor McMurray told you it's a town board decision not to have response to the audience. Please respect that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman.
It's already signed, greenway signs, the shoulder of the road is fine. I personally like that area. It's beautiful. You can walk it if you want to, and if you want to go to the river, you can go to the river. All you gotta do is walk across the median, across the parkway, of which there's not that much traffic, as long as you're not talking about the commute times for the pharmaceuticals. Pay attention, cross it, go to the overlook, whatever you want to do. It just seems like we're spending money because we can spend the money, and maybe we shouldn't do that and just leave the parkway open for people who want to drive it. Maybe close it down the weekends for people who want to use it for other purposes, or just don't do anything.
Councilman Kinney?
I have a couple questions. Just on, I was looking at option 4, and it said, but on option 4, the path would be 10 feet wide. After reading the contact information, my understanding is the American Disability Trail, path trail. And in the information I had, that I looked through with all the regulations and stuff, it said that the minimum would be 12 feet if it was an ADA path. Is that incorrect, or can it be reduced to, with 2-foot shoulders on each side?
What we were planning was a 10-foot path with 5-foot shoulders on each side. They'd be unpaved shoulders. The 10-foot width is fine, and all other aspects of slopes, cross slopes, longitudinal slopes would be compatible with the Americans with Disabilities Act.
Okay. So it's really 20 feet, yeah, option 4. My other question was, when you talk about the drainage, and, you know, that was apparent. I know that I talked to one of the past highway superintendents, and he said there was lots of drainage issues along there. So, and I know that Mike mentioned that there are some places there's berms and people can't see the traffic or hear the traffic. But if you were to do the option 4, you would, it seems to me, you would have to, with the drainage, you have to level those berms and stuff in order to put everything in.
Well, it sort of goes back to that whole ADA. The slopes have to be 5%, so you can't have a lot of up and down. You've got to sort of level things out. So you would have to do a lot more grading. To say that you'd have to remove them all completely is probably not required, but you would do a significant amount of grading to sort of level things out. There'd be a significant amount more of drainage infrastructure that would have to go in. There's a lot of drainage ditches that go through there. You know, you'd have to put culverts in. There's a lot of, you know, roadside ditches and swales at each of the intersections, like at Bedell and Staley. You'd have to put more drainage infrastructure there as well. And that was all figured into the estimate that Mark mentioned, the $3 million and change.
Okay, and the other thing is, I know it doesn't, in option 4, it doesn't include rails, guide rails. as going through there and going through all the American Disability Act, it pretty much would have to have guardrails, again, along significant amounts where it's only 30, 40 feet wide. You have a road on both sides. You know,
Well,
so.
You know, we would have to get into final design to really determine exactly where we would need those, so I don't want to, you know, just off the
But
cuff
it
say.
probably is going to have some.
There
through those
probably
areas
would be
that are
areas,
narrow.
like it's very narrow at the bridge that goes over the 6
Mile
mile
Creek,
there.
yeah.
You know, you're pinned in between the roads there. It would make sense to have some type of barrier, but
And
you know,
that's
there's-
a mile or two long, that narrow stretch, so it's quite significant, okay. Let's see, what else do I got here? And just in response to, you know, the traffic on East River Road, I live on East River Road. I also spend a lot of time on West River Road. We have, on East River Road, we have a lot more traffic on East River Road. And the difference too, one of the main differences between East River and West River is there's homes on both sides of the roads, almost the whole stretch, which causes a lot of issues with walkers and whatnot. I'm hoping someday they can somehow widen that road, because I do walk that road as well. And I've looked at a lot of the numbers too, and it was interesting that, and because a lot of what has been said about not just that road, but other town roads, is that they weren't built to handle the kind of traffic that's on it right now, even and if you were to move some of the, or all of the parkway traffic over, that road and others are only at 10% of the design capacity, so it could handle it. Okay, you've answered all my questions. I was worried about the ADA thing. Oh, all parking lots were removed.
All new.
Okay, and the parkland, could you explain that? If the difference between a parkway, a road, and parklands is significantly different, isn't it? In what they can do and what they can't do. You said that there can be no commercial development without active legislature.
Would be the case with a park land, a parkway,
Okay,
or like Buck Farm, which is a preserve.
yeah.
It would be the same. It would require legislation for us to do anything like putting commercial interests in that.
Okay.
And the legislature does not cotton well to that.
I know there's what is it, the alienation of parks, it's
Yes,
quite a
alienation
process
of
to go
parklands.
through, yes,
That's right.
yes,
That's right.
okay.
Councilman Roddick, or Councilman Dorgan?
What currently is parkland there?
All the state land that is that parkway is state parkland.
So everything from the right of way that the town owns from the service road to the water
To the water.
is state parkland
That's
right now.
That's right.
And the road that ran through there used to be a park road, but it's now maintained under DOT.
It is still parkland. It is under back decades ago, the New York State Department of Transportation took over the maintenance of all state parkways in the whole state of New York. And so that's continued and still continues to this day.
But the bike path would not be maintained by the DOT.
No, we're not. If we remove the highway, then the requirement for DOT to maintain that would cease.
So,
It would be the property responsibility, care, landscape, mowing, all those aspects would revert to New York State Parks.
which it is not right now, it's just
It's
purely
currently
DOT.
under the responsibility of DOT under the agreement.
Because they haven't done a good job.
I understand, but I understand the complaints, yes.
So there's a follow-up to that. The South Parkway,
Yes,
who owns that land?
state parks.
That's not a good answer, sir,
Okay,
because the state parks is not taken care of the South Parkway. I have to mow sections of that myself.
maybe I wasn't clear. It's under the responsibility of DOT to maintain that South Parkway as well, not New York State Parks. under the agreement.
Because it's the roadway that they're maintaining, and therefore the right-of-way they have to maintain.
They maintain the entire strip of the South Parkway like they maintain the entire strip of the West River, like they do the Robert Moses, now the Niagara Scenic, like the Ontario State Parkway, all of that. So I'm sorry if I was not.
No, that makes sense.
Okay.
Councilman Madigan?
So, right by the corner of Finley and the 104, where the median between the open 104 and the current multi-use path that's there, it's got weeds about, and I'm not exaggerating, and sumac's much higher than that. It was opened up about 16 years ago. I would assume if that parkway was closed, that section between the parkway, because that's basically what we're describing here, would that not be supposed to be maintained by the park? Since it's now a multi-use path, very similar in location design as what we're talking about, proximity to the river. And to the
It's a
gorge.
different dynamic, Councilman Madigan there, and I'll explain why. When that trail was put in with a closed section of that parkway from Niagara Falls State Park all the way to Whirlpool State Park, the section you're referencing is within the boundaries of Whirlpool State Park. Back at least 10, maybe 15 years ago, there was a community group that came forward.
Essentially, I could almost throw a baseball to the corner where you turn right to get to Canada. So I mean, the location